I never thought much about the things left behind when people move out. Old furniture, boxes of forgotten belongings, they were just pieces of someone else's life. As a property cleaner, I'd seen it all, but nothing prepared me for the day I found the broom. It was early October, and the air was filled with the damp scent of fallen leaves. My company had been hired to clean an old farmhouse on the outskirts of town. It was a chilly, gray morning when I arrived, and the house sat there, looking oddly crooked against the overcast sky. As I walked inside, the floorboards groaned beneath my feet, and a faint smell of mildew filled the air. The house had clearly been vacant for a while, abandoned by its last owner. My job was to clear it out, but as I walked room to room, I noticed something strange. No furniture, no boxes, just an eerie emptiness. Then, in a dusty corner of the living room, I saw it, an old wooden broom leaning against the wall. At first glance, there was nothing remarkable about it. It was an old broom, the kind with a wooden handle and stiff, dried bristles. But as I got closer, I noticed strange symbols carved into the handle, rough etchings that spiraled down the wood in jagged lines. I traced my fingers over them, feeling an odd chill run up my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that the broom was watching me. Ignoring the broom, I continued with the cleanup, moving through the empty rooms and scrubbing away years of grime. But no matter where I went, I always found the broom. I'd leave it in one room, turn around, and there it would be, leaning against the wall as if it had followed me. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, that maybe I'd simply overlooked it. But each time it appeared closer, leaning slightly forward like it was looking right at me. After a while, I couldn't ignore the prickling feeling at the back of my neck. The house was cold, but that broom gave off an unnatural chill. I tried not to think about it too much, but the more I avoided it, the more it seemed to appear. By mid-afternoon, I was getting nervous. I'd gone to the basement to clear out some old cobwebs when I heard a scraping sound. I turned, and there it was, resting against the doorway. Heart pounding, I stepped toward it. "Who's doing this?" I shouted, hoping maybe a coworker was playing a prank. Silence. The broom remained where it was, unmoving. But as I stared, I felt a strange pull, as if it were calling me, urging me to come closer. The air felt thick, almost as if it were holding its breath. I took a step forward, unable to resist, my hand reaching for the handle. The moment my fingers touched it, the air around me shifted. I heard whispers, faint and unintelligible, like voices carried on the wind. I yanked my hand away, my heart pounding in my chest. I could have sworn I felt something pulse beneath my fingers, a heartbeat buried within the wood. Shaking, I forced myself to move, trying to ignore the feeling of unseen eyes following me through every room. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the broom. I'd left it in the house, sure, but in my mind, I could still feel its presence. And then, just as I was drifting off to sleep, my phone buzzed. I looked down at the screen and my blood ran cold. It was a photo of the broom standing in my bedroom doorway. I jumped out of bed, scanning my room, but there was nothing there. Just darkness. I checked my phone again, but the photo was gone. My hands were shaking as I lay back down, my heart racing. I barely slept, every creak and groan of my apartment sending chills down my spine. The next day, I decided to return to the farmhouse. I told myself I'd imagined it all, but something in me needed to go back, to prove it was just an old broom. As I entered the house, the atmosphere felt different, heavier somehow, like the house was holding its breath. The air smelled faintly of smoke, and I noticed strange symbols on the walls that I hadn't seen before, the same symbols carved into the broom's handle. I found it in the living room, standing upright in the center of the room, waiting for me. My heart pounded as I approached it, my footsteps echoing in the empty house. I reached out, and this time I picked it up. The moment I touched it, a jolt of cold surged up my arm, freezing my veins. The room spun, and I felt myself being pulled, like the broom was dragging me into another world. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, twisting and contorting. I could feel something dark, something ancient, whispering in the back of my mind. Images flashed before me, figures in hooded robes, chanting in a language I didn't understand. They held brooms like mine, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, and suddenly I was back in the living room, gasping for breath. The broom was still in my hand, but now I knew what it was. It wasn't just a tool. It was a vessel, a conduit for something dark and twisted. And now it was awake. I dropped it, stumbling back, but as I turned to leave, I felt an invisible force pulling me back. The broom lay on the floor, but its bristles seemed to twitch, reaching out toward me like skeletal fingers. I backed away slowly, trying to keep my eyes on it, but the moment I looked away, I heard footsteps. Soft, shuffling footsteps coming from somewhere deeper in the house. I bolted for the door, but it wouldn't open. The house groaned around me and I felt the air grow colder. I turned and there it was, standing upright once more, blocking my path. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and I could feel them in my mind, probing, searching. I don't remember how I got out, but when I stumbled into the sunlight, the house was silent once more. I ran to my car, refusing to look back. I could still feel it, the weight of those unseen eyes watching me as I sped away. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. I'd find brooms outside my apartment, leaning against my door, appearing in places they shouldn't be. Every night, I heard whispers, faint and sinister, calling me back to the farmhouse. And then the dream started. I was back in the house, walking through the dark hallways, with the broom always at my side. I could feel it watching me, its presence suffocating, as if it were binding itself to me, claiming me. In every dream I tried to escape, but it would always pull me back, dragging me deeper into the darkness. One night, I woke up to find it in my room, standing at the foot of my bed, its bristles reaching out like skeletal fingers. I screamed, but no sound came out. I could only watch as it crept closer, inch by inch, until it was hovering above me. And then it spoke. Not in words, but in thoughts, filling my mind with images of fire and darkness, of hooded figures and ancient rites. I felt its presence wrap around me, cold and unforgiving, and I knew in that moment that I was no longer alone. They say you can't escape a curse, that it binds itself to you until it consumes you. I don't know how much time I have left. Every night, the broom comes closer, whispering, watching, waiting. And every morning, I find another broom outside my door, a silent reminder that it's coming for me. So if you ever find an old, abandoned broom, don't touch it. Leave it where it lies and walk away. Because once you pick it up, it won't let you go.